There's gold in them there hills.
Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to CLS Social Studies. Today we're going to be talking about the big one, the big California gold rush between 1848 and 1855. This is the big one. Here we go. As you remember, California, we got part of the Mexican cession from Mexico after the Mexican American War. And believe it or not, gold in California was found like right at the transformation point of becoming Mexican to American. So we really, really got lucky on this one. So California, controlled by Mexico before the Mexican-American War. We get it. There's a big population there of Mexicans, Native Americans, Hispanics named Californios. So we really don't have this great big westward push of American settlers yet there. That is until the gold rush, right? So here it is. Mexican officials give the Swiss immigrant, his name is John Sutter, they give him permission to build a colony there in 1839. Now, the gold rush happens in 1849, right? Right. Let's go back to the date right there. Oh, back to the date. Oop, oop, oop. There it is, 1848 to 1855. So you have the gold rush starting almost 10 years after John Sutter sets up this colony, which happens to be a popular rest stop for immigrants every year flowing through California. So, what happens? James Marshall is a carpenter who's building a water mill for John Sutter in 1848. And on January 24th, 1848, James Marshall looks in the river and he sees this little sparkle of gold. And that really, really just sparks everything. Originally, Marshall and Sutter were like, bro, don't tell anybody about this and let's keep this all to ourselves. But just like anything else that has to do with money, word got out fast. And in 1849 alone, about 80,000 gold seekers called 49ers, think about that, it happened in 1849. We called them 49ers near the Sacramento River, the San Francisco 49er football team, right? It's kind of paying homage to its past. So in 1849, 80,000 gold miners called 49ers rushed to California. Now, that could do a lot of stuff already. If you have that many people living there, that's part of the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 to be able to become a state. And we'll discuss that in a little bit. But these miners, these 49ers would go there and they would prospect or search for gold along banks of the streams and in surface mines. And they would, some of these miners, they were called placer miners, they would take a gold or they would take a pan that had layers on the side and they would put loose rock and scoop loose rock and they would do what they would pan for gold, and they would get out the big chunks and just slowly but surely work their way all the way down and get rid of that loose gravel and rock, leaving at the end either gold nuggets or gold flakes, which they would then cash in for money. And in 1853, California produced about $60 million in gold. That time, you're talking about a lot of money in gold. Now, when this happened, you have, like I said, 80,000 in 1 year alone spring up. People are just flooding California, and these mining camps called boom towns would just spring up overnight, wherever enough people gathered in one place to find gold. And I mean, it would be like a regular town. It had a bank, it had a saloon, it had buildings, motels, hotels, whatever have you, little businesses and shopkeepes and restaurants, and they would literally pop up overnight. This is why they're called boom towns, because one day it's not there, boom, the next day it is. All right, so a lot of these miners are coming to America. Well, a lot of these miners are coming from America, East Coast America, traveling to the West Coast of California. They had many different cultures and different backgrounds. The majority of them, roughly about 80% of them, were young, unmarried men in search of adventure. Hey, let's go out there and find some gold and become rich. Like I said, 80% of American, about 20% of them came from other countries around the world. About 5% of these gold rush immigrants were women or children. So it's a small amount of women and children out in the Wild West and a large amount of young, unmarried men. So that alone can cause a disaster. Now, when these guys are out there, you have to remember not all of these gold miners are finding gold. A lot of shopkeepers, a lot of the women were shopkeepers. They were making good money, cooking meals, washing clothes, operating boarding houses. Now, it's the shopkeepers, believe it or not, that made the most amount of money. Now, yes, there were some groups of miners out there that got in some long strings of gold and made a lot of money, but that was not all of them. The majority of them found little or no gold at all because they were working on old mines. Now, miners paid these high prices for basic necessities because of the huge amount of gold in circulation. It caused a huge inflation. And I have some numbers here for you, and I want you to listen closely. All right. So, according to Edward Buffum, who is the author of 6 Months in the Gold Mines, written in 1850, here's some of the information that he gives. Right, having a breakfast of bread, cheese, butter, sardines, and 2 bottles of beer with a friend, he received a bill for $43, which is equivalent to $1,200 in today. Canteens charging $1 for a slice of bread, and to have it buttered, it would cost $2. That's about $56 in today's money. A dozen eggs would have cost you $90 in today's money, where it only costs $1, $2. And a pickaxe would cost $1,500. A pound of coffee, $1,200, and a pair of boots around $3,000 in today's money. So you're talking about these shopkeepers, these business workers, hotel workers, all of these people who are running the shops. They're the ones who are really cashing in on this gold rush. Again, there are some people who do make a lot of money, but the majority do not. All right, so this gold in California attracts miners from all around the world. In 1849, 20,000 immigrants alone from California, from China, Europe, Mexico, and South America come to California. And overall, probably the largest demographic of people, the largest immigrant to come in with the Chinese. About 24,000 Chinese people came in, making it trying to find wealth in California. And what you have to remember is think about the demographics there today. There's a large Asian demographic. A lot of these Chinese came, couldn't find gold, but didn't have money to go back home. So a lot of them stayed here. Many Americans did not welcome the Chinese. Some of them did. Many of them did because they worked on old mines. They opened restaurants that were patronized very frequently. And they did lots of work that some people didn't want to do. So some did not. Some did. It was kind of a big mixture. In 1853, California placed a high monthly tax on foreign miners. The legal system definitely did not favor the immigrants. It favored the Americans. So there's a couple of things you have to think about here with the Chinese miners. There's so many of them. And, during the gold rush, and if you think about the Wild West, you're thinking about people robbing, right? And racist attacks on these Chinese miners. And that's really what happened. There was a lot of times that these Chinese miners would get attacked. So they would do things like melt their gold into like a pan and then cover it with like a black soot and make it just look like an old iron pan so nobody wanted it. And when they would go back home, they would clean it up and melt it down and then turn around and sell it. So these are the type of things that these miners had to worry about while they were out in California. All right, so the population explodes quickly. It makes California eligible to become a state, and it becomes the 31st state in 1850. The growth had a negative effect on Californios and Native Americans in California. You have to remember now you have hundreds of thousands of people who moved into California searching for gold, thinking they were going to get rich. A lot of them did not get rich, did not have the money to move back, so they stayed. Now, that did have a positive effect on California in a way because new businesses and new industries were able to transform California what it is today. And in 1869, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad really stopped the cutoff of California, really connected them and really ended the isolation of California to the rest of the world, which really then, again, aided the economy in California. So the gold rush in 1849 was the big one. This was our first really huge gold rush in the United States where hundreds of thousands of people moved there. It was dangerous. It was not not everybody struck gold, okay? But it's what made California what it is, and it really has an effect on the nation, and you'll see that next in another compromise, in the Compromise of 1850.